Hello and welcome. Today is question number 156. Let me do the slideshow so you can see better. Yes, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe. That's free for you, but it's really helpful for my channel, so that really helps me out. As you know, I've done some research on LinkedIn job descriptions and came up with the 15 top topics that you should be studying for a DevOps or SRE interviews. The ones at the top, like cloud, AWS, GCP, CI/CD, are more important than the ones at the bottom, like containers and system design. However, some of the topics like Kubernetes and Terraform, I think they're underranked based on data, based on my experience and my gut instincts. They should be ranked higher. Either way, today's topic is number 11, Kubernetes. Again, it should not be number 11 based on my experience. Question today is describe how a pod is created in a Kubernetes cluster. The question may seem simple, right? Like, what are you talking about? The interview is looking for your understanding of the cluster's components and how they work together, and which ones exist. Like, do you know the names of the components? So if you've been working with Kubernetes for a while, this will be nothing for you. But if you're new to it, it will show in your answer because it will not be complete. Not that you have to know every little detail, but you have to know enough to convince the interviewer that you know how this Kubernetes thing works, right? So even though the question seems simple, the answer has multiple steps, just so you know. Before I get to the answer though, be sure to check out my coach's website, flightspencer.com. He's giving away 1 hour free to anybody who's in the job market. Okay, so first of all, to answer the question, you have to know what the components are. There are two types of nodes. There are the master nodes and there are the worker nodes. In the master node runs the scheduler, the API server, the etcd, controller manager, and on the worker nodes runs kubelet and some kind of Docker engine, some kind of container engine. So when we say, if you look at the left arrow here, when let's say using kubectl, we say, hey, let's create a pod. We're actually talking to the heart of this thing. API server is it is communicating with everybody. And the kubectl command becomes an API call. So the API server responds to the call and goes, okay, I have a request for a pod. It writes the request to the etcd, which is basically this data store for all configuration. That's how it knows what is the desired state versus the current state. And just because we now ask for a new pod, the desired state has now changed. Now we have to make it so. That's what it's about. So API server then tells the scheduler, hey, I need a pod schedule based on these parameters. Scheduler looks at the parameters, looks at the taints and all the configuration of the nodes, all the worker nodes, and figures out which node it's going to put this pod on. It then tells the API server, hey, this pod is going to live on node number 5, let's say. API server writes that into the etcd saying, hey, we're about to run the pod on node number 5. Goes back and tells the scheduler, go ahead and do it. Scheduler goes and tells kubelet daemon running on the worker node 5 saying, hey, worker node 5, run this pod and let me know when you've got it. It's kubelet receives the request, starts the pod up. When it knows it's running healthy, it sends the status back to the API server saying, hey, I have done this. So then API server goes and writes the information to etcd saying, hey, now the desired state and the current states are fully compatible, fully equal. I am done. So these are the steps that API server takes to make sure a new pod is created and running on one of the worker nodes. As you can see, if you don't know the components, then you're not going to be able to answer the question. If you don't know how they work together, you're not going to be able to answer the question. Again, you don't have to know every single detail, but you have to know most of them to convince the interviewer that you know how a pod is created, what components are needed, and what components are talking to what components. That's the idea of the question. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please subscribe. And if you have further questions, you can find me on LinkedIn. I will do my best to answer the question, or you can just simply leave a comment down below. All right, I will see you in the next one.